Bum bum da-da-dum bum 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 da-da-dum bum bum ba-dum bum bum ba-dum da-da-dum bum. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, every January, since there aren't a whole lot of new releases for me to talk about, I take that month to talk about classic movies that are getting sequels later in the year. That's my tradition. However, this year it's gonna be a little different. We got a new Indiana Jones movie coming out in June. It's gonna be the 5th installment, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So I'm gonna take this month to talk about the movies leading up to it. Yep, that's right, all of them. And to be completely honest with you guys, I'm actually not super nostalgically attached to this series. In fact, I can probably count on my fingers the number of times I've watched them. I know, this series is hailed as among the classics, up there with Star Wars and the rest, but I don't know, just for some reason, it isn't with me. But you know, I figured with a new one coming out, I'd better rewatch them. And with that, I might as well make videos on them. So let's start from the beginning. Raiders of the Lost Ark. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is the first Indiana Jones movie. It was released in 1981. To put into perspective, that's 1 year after The Empire Strikes Back and 2 years before Return of the Jedi. This movie would later be retitled Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark to match with the other titles. But for this video, I'm gonna call this movie by its original title. Raiders of the Lost Ark stars Harrison Ford as renowned archaeologist Indiana Jones, an icon of adventure in movies if ever there was one. He does work part-time as a professor of archaeology at a university, but when he's not doing that, he's going on globe-trotting adventures searching for treasure, taking on bad guys. The movie takes place in 1936, so Nazi Germany is taken over. We learn that they have a lead on the legendary Lost Ark of the Covenant, which is a real legend. It's said to be an object of immeasurable power. So to beat the Nazis to the Ark, Indiana Jones teams up with an old flame of his, Marion Ravenwood, played by Karen Allen, and off they go on their adventure. Now, this film might be a little difficult for me to talk about because it's revered as such a classic. I mean, I'm not going to say anything bad about the movie. It is a classic. The movie's awesome. I'm just not a lifelong fan like I am with Star Wars, for example. That being said, this movie has just about as many iconic elements as the original Star Wars does. Starting with Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. Like I said, he's an icon of adventure movies. Indiana Jones is a straight up badass. He's got his signature hat and his whip, which is awesome in this movie. He uses it for all sorts of stuff. He whips guns away from bad guys. He uses it to swing across a gap. Classic awesome adventure stuff. And he's a trash talker too. There's a scene where he's talking with Belloq, who's one of the antagonists of this film. And Belloq's like, "This is your end, but what a shame. How am I gonna find another renowned archaeologist on my level?" Jones replies,
"Try the local sewer."
That cracked me up. There's just something so iconic about Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones, you know? It's that combination of the actor playing him and the signature look with his signature musical theme, which I'll get to later. It all combined together back in 1981 to bring us a staple of modern cinema. Cause really, this movie was the pioneer of those globe-trotting adventure treasure hunt movies. Before this came out, there really wasn't anything like it. And Indiana Jones would later go on to inspire such adventurers as Lara Croft and Nathan Drake. It all came from Dr. Jones. That being said, he's not the only character in this movie. Karen Allen is Marion Ravenwood. As the love interest in this movie, I thought she was alright. She sure does yell a lot though. But also, she does know how to throw down when she needs to. There's a scene where we first meet her in the bar. She takes on a couple of those Nazi bad guys. You're like, oh, okay, so she is kind of a badass as well. Not nearly as skilled as Indy, admittedly, but good enough. And the chemistry between the two of them, excellent on screen. They have banter back and forth that's just super entertaining to watch. Another standout character in this movie is Sala, played by John Rhys-Davies, who would later go on to play Gimli and Treebeard in Lord of the Rings. Sala is pretty much the Felix to Jones's Bond. He helps him out on this adventure, and he is a pretty memorable character.
Asps. Very dangerous.
Actually, that's another thing about Indiana Jones, is that he has a fear of snakes, which I think is really interesting. I actually love that about him because he's supposed to be like this brave, fearless adventurer, but he does have one weakness. He has this irrational fear of snakes. And there's a scene in this movie where he's in this chamber with a bunch of snakes on the floor. He has to overcome that fear of his to take on the challenge. That's great character development. And that scene is just one of the many classic, iconic moments in this movie. Seriously, watching this movie last night, I was like, yeah, all this is coming back to me. All the iconic moments in cinema. Like the scene where he has the staff and the light is shining through it. The light shines on the exact place where the Ark is located. It's classic treasure hunt trope. You know, you have this item that tells you where the exact location of the treasure is. In this movie, it's an iconic scene with that music blasting. Bah! da da da. Again, I'll get to the music later. But watching that scene last night, I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. But it doesn't stop there. The action in this movie is really exciting. I mean, we'll get the classic out of the way. The very beginning of the movie with the golden idol. He tries to get away with it, but then that giant boulder goes after him. That's like the iconic image from Raiders of the Lost Ark, is him running away from that boulder. But then later on, the scene where Marion's in that plane and the gasoline is spilling under the truck, I was like, she's gonna blow! The truck blows up, the plane blows up, and that leads to that awesome truck chase. That's like the centerpiece action scene of this entire movie. Everyone's shooting at each other, Indiana Jones is under the truck, and he hangs on by the whip. This whole sequence, I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, this is really well choreographed. So all sorts of props to that. So with memorable characters in an awesome adventure with great dialogue and seriously entertaining and thrilling action scenes, it's all backed up by John Williams' iconic Indiana Jones score. Y'all know the Raiders March, it's one of his most popular themes. Dun 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 dun. Just as the credits are rolling and that march is playing, I was just sitting there listening to the music. It's awesome. It's another legendary theme in the pantheon of legendary movie themes, right up there with Star Wars and Jaws and E.T. and all them. And the romance theme is just as great. Da 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 da. Classic Hollywood, man. Raiders of the Lost Ark is a stone cold classic. Steven Spielberg, George Lucas, Harrison Ford, John Williams, they all brought us something truly special back in 1981. The pioneer of treasure hunt films, the true return of the great adventure. If you haven't seen it or if you want to watch it in HD, it's streaming right now on Paramount Plus. Check it out. So, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Have you seen it? What are your thoughts on it? And where does it rank among the Indiana Jones movies for you? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!